Parliament, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman.
Catherine Delahunty.
Mr Chair, tēnā koutou te whare paramata ko tēnei pō. Very pleased to join my colleagues in discussing this bill at the Select Committee stage because it was, as they have shown, very interactive. There were a lot of people who came before us with a big background in the teaching profession, and they had a lot of things to say, and they answered a lot of questions that we asked them about the issues that have been covered so far tonight, including the limited authority to teach. But I want to touch on a couple of SOPs that the Green Party is putting up because we have some fundamental concerns about the purposes of the bill, which we never got clarity on at the Select Committee, no matter how many times we asked. So I've got a supplementary order paper on 31, 32, 33 and 36 that are all about the functions of this body, because the last thing we need in this country in education law is more loose and confusing rhetoric which doesn't tell the person reading it what it means. And we never got answers from anybody about the reason for changing the functions of the Teachers' Council. I could also expand at length about the reasons for changing the governance structures at universities, but I think the first contribution will start with the issues relating to the functions of the Teachers' Council. So the changes that have been made were basically changing a body that was set up to basically oversee the quality of initial teaching education courses that lead to registration, manage registration and issue practicing certificates, and manage conduct and competence processes. These were the functions that are appropriate to a registration body. If the government wants to change that and has some vision, why don't we understand what it is? Why did we sit through days and days and weeks and thousands of submissions and we never got clarity about why the government had decided to change this body? The clarity we got was the minister will decide who's appointed, and then we're going to change the functions to do things such as raise the status of the profession. What does that mean? I think the very least that we needed to know was what is meant by raising the status of the profession, that the profession itself is not doing or is not capable of doing, and why a non-elected body would be fitting to do that. It's very bewildering, it's a very polite way to put it, very bewildering, because we already have these agencies which are under direct government control, such as the Ministry of Education and ERO, who look after quality in the schools, who supposedly support and help to raise the status of the profession and ensure quality education. And there are a number of other research groups that also contribute to that. But now we've got another one. So instead of having a registration council with clear functions elected by teachers for teachers, we now have a minister-appointed organisation with broad powers, which will be paid for by the registration fees, in some part at least, of the teachers themselves who don't actually get to choose. And we don't know what it's for. And we don't know what it means to talk about these things. So a number of submitters raised issues about what was going on and how ensuring safe and high quality leadership teaching and learning in all settings, how that was going to be achieved with no information and no backup. So we tend to support the submitters who said it needed a narrower function, that actually a narrower function is clearer, and like most professional bodies that are run by the professionals themselves, it's about registration, it's about competence, it's about safety, and it's about maintenance. If the government believes that's no longer important, what's important is to muddy the waters and have a huge, broad set of functions that no one really understands, they've done a great job, if that's what the purpose was. And of course, nothing's context-free, and we have to look at the clauses that the Green Party has put up these SOPs around in terms of what's the political context in which these clauses have been introduced. And it's a low trust model, as I said in a previous contribution, and it's not based on listening to the people who want to raise the status of their own profession. So it is quite concerning. It's about a confusion of roles, and the long list of functions in section 382 enables all kinds of things, but basically doesn't clarify the reason for the changes that have been introduced. And why is a registration body needing to morph into some kind of status lifting, best practice profession? And I'll give you an example of a statement. The functions have been, Mr Chair, Mr Chair.
Before I proceed on, I've worked out who I am going to call, but Catherine Delahunty has had her 4 calls on this part of the bill, and that's the limit of it. One of the disadvantages members have now is that I was in the chair previously, and I do know one who has spoken and also what has already been said. And I would like now for people to focus back on the clauses of the bill. The principles have been accepted, and I think if we can focus on the clauses of the bill. David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker.